We're so happy to have Oren Rosenzweig with us today, co-founder, chief business officer of INVZ Technologies, to join us. Glad you're on with us. Congratulations. Obviously, this is monumental. I was looking through the company and LiDAR standard for sensors and perception software. This is driving autonomous into the future, right? Tell me more about the company and how excited you are here.
Sure. Thanks, Nicole. I'm super excited to be here, and of course, very excited to start trading today on the NASDAQ under INVZ ticker. So INVZ is developing LiDARs. LiDAR is a 3D sensor, and also the perception software that uses the data from the LiDAR. And our focus is really to enable autonomy for vehicles, starting with BMW as our first biggest customer, and also through working with 4 major partners, 4 of the biggest tier 1 suppliers in the automotive industry: Magna, Aptiv, Harman, and Hyrin. And the goal is really to bring autonomy to the masses, democratize autonomy through the supply of cost-effective LiDARs, and LiDARs being the kind of the most critical sensors in order to enable autonomy for vehicles.
Yeah. And you talk about your great partnerships, right? You mentioned Harman, and we have BMW on there. And one thing that I thought was interesting, I was listening to your co-founder earlier today, Omer Khalif, the CEO, and it's interesting because Tesla made Tesla before this was even available. So it's interesting because now this LiDAR technology is going to provide something for autonomous that Tesla doesn't have, right? Why is this better?
Right. I think this really will enable many of the other OEMs to kind of leapfrog Tesla on autonomous. I think, many people ask me about Tesla, and I guess that's specifically because some of the comments made by Elon on not using LiDARs. And and our view on that is quite simple. I mean, we have a ton of respect for Elon Musk, and what he did for the industry is really amazing. But I think on autonomy and specifically on LiDARs, we see that as a critical sensor, not just us. I mean, everybody in the industry sees that as a critical sensor. I mean, Tesla made the decision not to use LiDARs, back about 5 years ago. And that was probably a right decision back then, given kind of the cost point for LiDARs, but it's no longer the case. I mean, today it's kind of it's obvious today that with the price point of LiDARs today and the value that LiDARs give for autonomous vehicles, it's clearly the right decision to use them, and they provide tremendous advantages over cameras and radars, which are kind of the alternative sensors that Tesla is using.
I think it's interesting because you talk about the price point and how it's changed. I mean, we've seen that with so much technology. When things first come out, they are astronomical in cost, and then they come down to something more reasonable. At this point, when you talk about LiDAR technology and the standards that we're seeing for autonomous, you're seeing that the price point and the size, small size, better pricing, and now, you have obviously the administration moving forward to try and push all kinds of incentives for EVs. Tell me about what you're looking for going forward at this point from the administration and your partnerships.
Sure. So I think you said it right. I mean, I think the most critical kind of factor for adoption of this new technology is obviously the price, and we're very focused on that. I mean, going from the first generation that we're now kind of putting in mass production, which we call the INVZ 1, and we've just recently announced our second generation INVZ 2. But besides kind of having even higher performance on the second generation, our efforts are mostly around optimizing cost, because we don't want this thing to just stay with like the very high-end BMW vehicles that we're working on now, but we want to bring this to kind of any vehicle, right? So and for that, we got to really work on the price, and that's what we're doing with about a 70% cost reduction from the first to the second generation. I think what you mentioned in the administration is, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, tell me about your thought on the administration quickly.
No, I think they're definitely helpful, and I think it's not just on EVs. It's also on autonomy. I think NHTSA and the administration is really pushing both EVs and also the adoption of autonomous technology, kind of with the understanding that this thing will save lives and will help people as well. Kind of get some of their time back while they're driving, but primarily because it's going to save lives. And I think there's a lot of push there through incentives to automakers and just through legislation in general.
Right. Yeah, they really are. And they're talking about not having a cap and maybe giving more incentives to folks for EV. I have a couple of questions. The first is, so you have BMW, a great partnership there, and some of the others that you mentioned. But how about some of the big U.S. automakers like GM, which is getting very big in EVs, Ford? Why not work with some more of the automakers? Are you already in talks with some of these companies?
Yes, we are. I mean, I can't mention any names here, obviously, but we are already working in different kind of stages of engagements with all the major automakers, through our kind of partners. So we're a tier 2 supplier, meaning that we work through, right, companies like Magna and Aptiv, which are, two of the biggest, Magna being the biggest supplier of automotive, components in North America. And they obviously work very closely with, those companies you mentioned. And, we have very good relationships with them.
Okay. So you'll have to come back and give us more on that, because that's huge. I mean, if you're working on more partnerships with some of these companies, I know it's in the works, so you can't talk about it, but you'll come back and break that news with us. We look forward to that. I think it's interesting how you and Omer are co-founders of this great company. Why now? I mean, I'm sure you've been friends a long time. You created this many, many years ago. Why now to come public? What is it that you're really trying to do here?
Right. So yeah, we started this company, Omer, myself, and another guy named Oren. We started that just over 5 years ago. Grew this thing from a small team to just over 300 people now. And now is the point for us to kind of get into the next stage of funding. We see this going public as just another funding event. So this week we just got an infusion of over $370 million into the company, which is really going to allow us for many growth opportunities. Growing the team, investing in different areas, and just really delivering on the mission that we were set to do, which is really democratizing autonomy for automotive.
Have you sat in an autonomous vehicle where you just sit there and it goes?
Oh yeah,
you sit with your fingers crossed. I don't know.
Well, maybe at first, but the good thing is it kind of turns boring after a few minutes, which is a good sign, which means that you kind of like you forget that you're in an autonomous vehicle. And I think once people kind of get used to that experience, I think it will just become the norm.